So, my name is Wim Stalmans. First of all, I could speak in German, but that would be a little bit too much fun for you guys. So, if you have questions afterwards in German, ich verstehe Deutsch. Ich habe nur ein bisschen Schwierigkeit, wieder Deutsch zu reden. Ja. If you allow me, I'll do my talk in English. So, thank you, Professor Scholz, for the kind introduction. I won't add to that in presenting myself. I'll just mention that I'm serving currently together with Chiara Ventura from Blockchain Italia, serving as a co-chair of the education working group at INATBA. Okay, and it's in that quality that I will be speaking here today. I will be presenting the work of that educational working group, and then more specifically what we are doing currently. And that's also the basis of today's title, Web3 Survival Skills for Citizens. So in the program, it's written for citizens and policymakers or decision makers. I will concentrate my talk on only the citizens. Okay. So agenda, I will very quickly present INATBA. I will give you an idea of some of the previous work of the education working group, and then we'll come to the essence of this talk, Web3 survival skills for citizens. But first of all, INATBA. So INATBA is an organization that has the ambition to be the global convener of the blockchain ecosystem. And so INATBA has currently 170 members from 38 countries. It has a governmental advisory body with 31 organizations from 24 countries, an academic advisory body with 53 members from 19 countries. And so how does, or what is actually the objective of INATBA? That is to support blockchain adoption globally. And so that is done through dialogue with public authorities and regulators. That is done by supporting the development of guidelines and standards, by promoting open, inclusive governance models for blockchain, and by developing sector-specific sector-specific blockchain specifications. And so that is realized through these 6 education working groups: finance, social impact, privacy, identity, education, and standardization. And these working groups organize events, write reports, and participate in policy consultations. So that was very quickly about INATBA. Very quickly, what we have been doing, or two examples of work that has been done in the education working group in the past. With, first of all, a paper that we wrote with the title Blockchain Education, a Prerequisite for Socio-Economic and Technological Advancement. I suppose that participants will receive the slides, or you will be able to check the recording, so you can find that paper under this URL. The highlights of that paper was a education priority matrix in which we propose a high-level blockchain curriculum and match that with occupational categories. So both entries are matched through different levels of mastery of the different topics in the curriculum. So if you're interested in that, you can find that paper online. A second example of our previous work is our participation in the CHASE consortium, which is by the European Commission financed consortium that has 23 private and academic members, and has as an objective to formulate a European blockchain skills strategy. And so we had the pleasure to be part of formulating 5 strategy recommendations. So there are 2. If you're interested, the URL on the previous slide over here helps you to find back that material. So that was very shortly about INATBA and some examples of what we have been doing with the education working group within INATBA in the past. Now, to the essence of this talk, survival skills for citizens. So what we are doing right now, so this is really a sneak peek, a preview that I'm giving you. We are currently preparing the writing of our next paper. And the title will be Web3 Survival Skills for Citizens. And so the objective of this paper is to conduct a thought experiment. And the thought experiment is all about a hypothetical future world that is made up of only public permissionless blockchains. And so the question is, okay, what can that bring as possibilities, as capabilities, as utility to citizens, to the individuals? And then what do these individuals, what does the citizen need as skills in order to be able to navigate that hypothetical future world made up of only public permissionless blockchains? Okay, so the motivation is a little bit to make an opposition to a current trend in corporate world where many companies are adopting blockchain, but then the private permissioned version. Okay, so this is really the other end of the spectrum where we imagine only public permissionless blockchains. And in that thought experiment, we make a few sections. So on the side of the utility for the citizens of this hypothetical world of public permissionless blockchains, we imagine utility or possibilities in the personal lives of individuals, of citizens, and then utility in the professional lives. And then on the skills side, we make the distinction between skills that are said to be participatory skills, skills that citizens need to use that Web3, that public permissionless blockchain infrastructure. And then secondly, value creating skills, which would be the skills that citizens would need to start building themselves applications on top of that public permissionless infrastructure. So in the next slides, I will be going a little bit more in detail in these 4 sections. With first, let me get my notes right. With first of all, the utility of this public permissionless infrastructure for citizens in their personal lives. And so what can we imagine as possibilities, as capabilities? First of all, the direct peer-to-peer, person-to-person transfer, direct person-to-person transactions of actually anything. It could be monetary value, it could be actually any asset, could be a car, could be a house, could be equity in a company, you name it. Okay. The essential point here is that the transaction is direct from person to person without the need of a trusted third party. A second capability that this public permissionless infrastructure proposes is direct ownership of your assets, of your data, and of your identity. So currently, our assets and our data are part of proprietary databases managed by third parties. Now, blockchain proposes here a one single source of truth where you don't need any third party in order to interact or manage your ownership. So the big advantage here is that your ownership and your data is portable, is borderless portable. When you have your keys, you have your ownership. Also, personal data, so currently owned by third parties, constituting a single point of failure with these centralized honeypots. So when you have your digital wallet, you have your own data in there, and it's you who owns it and who is making the decisions. Next, what we imagine in the working group as capabilities for citizens in their personal lives, linked to the previous point, is self-management of assets, data, and identity. So again, here we come back to these digital wallets. And a good example is self-sovereign identity. I saw in the program that there will be a whole talk about self-sovereign identity. I will be very much interested myself. Now, the basic principle is that you decide on each data point with who or with which parties you will be sharing that data, and potentially also you will be the one who decides on potential monetization of your own data points. Then another possibility of this public permissionless blockchain infrastructure is the access that it enables to borderless markets and networks with, of course, less friction to participate. Again, you don't need a third party in order to interact. So you have more open product, service, and labor markets. Now, one element that I note here is escrow services. So you can have on a blockchain through smart contracts escrow services that allow for these borderless markets and networks to operate globally with parties that we don't know and don't trust. A last point as capability or possibility of this infrastructure, public permissionless infrastructure, is the financial inclusion, decentralized finance, where it's easier to interact and to have direct access to basic financial transactions. Again, you don't need a trusted third party. It's easier to access borrowing and lending services. It's easier to use decentralized exchanges. Again, you have access to the web. You can access these kind of services. Okay. Let's move on to the utility or the capabilities that such hypothetical infrastructure of only public permissionless blockchains proposes to citizens for their professional lives. So let's start with the second point, flexible and adaptable networks and organizations. So here what is of essence is that work contracts can be tokenized, tasks can be tokenized. You combine that with smart contracts and you start defining entire operational project processes. You start also potentially defining entire business processes. And again, with elements that we mentioned before, borderless market, trustless transactions, all that allows for networks and organizations to become more flexible and more adaptable than today. And from there, we can move on to a next possibility for citizens and their professional lives. That is new ways to deliver work. So blockchain, or an infrastructure of public permissionless blockchains, can lower the barriers to deliver online work. So there is an easier access to borderless labor markets. There is more independency, more possibility to contribute to a multitude of projects and not be bound only to one organization. Here you also have the possibility for more agile schemes to develop, and for people to insert themselves in these kind of agile organizations. From there, we very quickly arrive at new organizational structures with, for example, the decentralized autonomous organizations. So when you start using utility tokens and use those utility tokens for internal payments and also external payments, internal payments for payments between contributors, for collaborating, external payments, clients that pay for services delivered by the organization, and you insert that token in an incentive design that aligns the interests of all contributors, well then you have a whole new possibility for structuring organizations. Another trend, upcoming trend, is regenerative crypto economics. I only have 2 minutes. I'm going to move on to the skills. So what we think that citizens will need as skills, survival skills, very high level survival skills, is first of all in terms of participatory skills, so the skills that you need to use that infrastructure, is a decentralized mindset. Get rid of the idea that there is some third party that will take care of your business, of your actions and transactions. You will need a lot more of autonomy, independence, and independent decision making. Moving on, other participatory skills, citizens will have to become more responsible and accountable as they will be more autonomous. Okay. And in order for all that to be realized, of course, critical thinking and research skills will be needed. Value creating skills, entrepreneurship and trial and error culture. This is a whole, so in this hypothetical world, this is a whole new space in which we enter into unknown terrain. So trial and error culture will be of essence in order to be able to explore all the possibilities. Citizens and individuals will have to become aware of crypto economics and how incentives can play a central role in the design of organizations. Then being creative in that infrastructure, in that environment, start building, imagining new business and operational models. And then, of course, as this is more about working together to realize objectives of projects and organizations, cooperation and teamwork is of the essence. And as your role is broader than what could be actually today the case, you have to align with many stakeholders in projects and organizations, so interdisciplinarity is of essence. I hope I respected the time. Thank you very much.
First of all, thank you very much.
Hi, many thanks for that input. I'm also into research and everything, and I don't want to criticize what you say, so just it's questions, not my opinion. just as a friend. I was wondering how much you have thought through all these potential for professional life, aka future of work, and if there's more on the conceptual side and also more on the value side. What I'm specifically wondering about is like this idea about how you're not bound by the organization is great, and I think on an organizational level, blockchain can totally contribute to better structures and also a more personalized future of work, let's say. But I'm just wondering what exactly are the advantages of smart contracts when it comes to that, because smart contracts, as I understood it, is more about like how can we actually make commitment work. And then I see the downside or the dark side of what blockchain can do. Say I say, okay, I'm going to do this and that task, and I'm going to pull it after the pull principle to my as my tasks. And then when I don't follow it up or whatever, you know, like I can monitor it or evaluate it on that. And when I don't follow it up according to whatever the expectations are, what then? In a token economy, that could lead to whichever. So, you know, this is just a scenario I'm drawing in my head that just popped up, and I'm just wondering how much you have gone into the dark scenarios of this.
Thank you for the question. Thanks for the question. I have been giving you, and I'm happy I can say what I'm going to say right now. I have been giving you a preview. So we are conducting that exercise right now. We have 2 monthly 1-hour meetings with the working group. So this is work that is ongoing currently. On the topic of smart contracts, so first of all, I do note all your points and will serve as input in our discussions in the education working group. For the smart contracts, you define anything you want in terms of delivery conditions, in terms of KPIs, and then you can imagine that a sign of delivery is kind of an input in the conclusion of the smart contract. In the smart contract, you can determine conditions or parameters in case the objectives are not realized. So these are really basic building blocks that you can start using in any way that suits you. Does that answer you a little bit your question? Okay.
There will be a lot of networking opportunity, guys, for you later on, and maybe you want to intensify the discussion afterwards. Thank you. Okay, one more question, snappy, please, and then we want to move on.
Have you thought about mapping your skill matrix to industry clusters?
To industry clusters? No. And well, that's me speaking personally, not for the education working group, but that's also my feeling for the entire education working group. This is really individual and citizen-centric. Moving away from centralization and exploring what it means for individual. Yeah, of course. Now, I think that in the exercise that we are doing, it's a very high-level exercise, and that would currently lead us a little bit too much into detail. Thanks for your question.
Okay. First of all, Wim, thank you so much. Round of applause.
Thank you.